Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday Learning Bhagavatam class. Hope you're all well and enjoying this lovely weather that Krishna is sending us. So today we're going to speak on Canto 9, Liberation, Chapter 23, the Dynasties and of the Sons of Yayāti. Our guest speaker is Vamsi Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Vamsi Dhari Prabhuji.
Hare
Over to
Krishna.
you. Haribol.
Haribo, thank you so much. So, without further ado, thank you all for who have joined. We'll begin with the pranam mantras. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshuronmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swah Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपदान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्णा करुण सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे तृणादपि सुनीचेन तरोरिवा सहिष्णुना अमानीना मानदेना कीर्तनिया सदा हरि जन्मादियस्य यतः अन्वयादित्रहत च अर्थेषु अभिघ्नस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदं यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो अमृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि सत्यं परं धीमहि सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्म प्रोजित कैतवो अत्र पुंसो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवादं त्रापत्रयोन्मूलं श्रीमद्भागवतं महामुनिक्ते किं वा परेरीश्वरेः सद्यो हृदि अवरुध्यते अत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रुभिः तत्क्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं सुखमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबतं भागवतं रसमालयम् मुहुरहो रसिकभुविभावुकः ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवय भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्णं पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृदयन्थस्थो हयभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतां वासुदेवे भगवति भक्तियोगप्रयोजितः ज्ञानतीयषु वैराग्यं ज्ञानं च यद् अहेतुकं यस्यं वये श्रूयमानानं कृष्णे परमपुरुषे भक्तिरुत्पाद्यते पुंस शोकमोहभय अपः वर्णयामि महापुण्यं सर्वपापहरं नृणं यदोर्वंश नरः श्रुत्वा सर्वपापप्रमुच्यते यदोर्वंश नरः श्रुत्वा सर्वपाप प्रमुच्यते Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. Let me quickly share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it,
Yes,
Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so another very beautiful chapter. Uh, in fact, anyone who is attending today's session is beginning on a journey of destroying all the sins that they have ever accumulated. Because you all read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam every Tuesdays and Thursdays, you actually accumulate no sin. But between Tuesday and Thursday, whatever sin you accumulated will also be destroyed. This chapter and the next one has a potential to destroy all the sins of all accumulations of all lives. This is the proclamation in this chapter itself. Um, so it's a very, very, very wonderful chapter. And it's in continuation of the series of chapters we have been reading on the lineage in the lunar dynasty. So previous chapter we were hearing of Ajamedha. So the screen size is good enough. You are able to see the characters on the screen.
If you could make it slightly bigger, Prabhu, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Just slightly bigger.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Uh, okay. So basically, Lunar Dynasty, few chapters ago, we started with Lunar Dynasty. In Lunar Dynasty, Solar Dynasty finished with Lord Ramchandra, if you remembered. And then there was a description, beginning of the Lunar Dynasty by Shukdev Goswami. And the very first personalities in the Lunar Dynasty we heard was the Somdev himself. And the pastime of Somdev, how he kidnapped the wife of Brihaspati, the fight broke out, and then the son was born, Buddha, and then Buddha, because he was actually the son of a demigod, so he had lot of prowess, and from Buddha, who himself was a demigod, was born Pururava, who was taking charge of the entire earthly planetary systems. So moon god, Buddha, Pururava, and Pururava's story is very famous. It ends abruptly. Pururava was mad in love with Urvashi, and she ditched him. And Pururava did a lot of penances and tried. At the end of the chapter, he went to Gandharva planet. So then the lineage description continues, and there is a mention of Pururava's sons, Ayu, and the last son, Vijaya. Actually, Ayu, I think, is the fourth son. So there is no sequence, but he had six sons, Pururava. Then Ayu's dynasty has been described in great details. Ayu had a son named Nahusa, and of course, Krita, Vridha, Raji, Rabhanena. Of these, Raji and Rabha also are very famous. Um, and their description is mentioned in Shrimad Bhagavatam in slight details. Then Nahusa, he had a very famous son, his six sons, Yati, Yayāti, Samyati, Ayati, Viyati, Kritihi. So these are the six sons, Yati, Yayati, Samyati, Ayati, Viyati, Kritihi. So Yayati was the most famous son because from the dynasty of Yayati, lot of the things happened. So Yayati's story again, like his great grandfather Pururava, is very famous. He was he got married to Devyani, but he also there was a fight between Devyani and Sarmishta. It's a very famous story, and Devyani, asked Sarmishta to become her maid servant, basically, and into follow her as servant into Yayati's house after marriage. But of course, Sarmishta was a royal daughter. She was Kshatriya by her nature and the son of the king, a daughter of the king. So basically, Yayati had a marriage with Devyani, but also co-marriage as a servant with Sarmishta. So from Devyani, Yayati had two sons, Yadu and Turvasu. And from Sarmishta, who was a Kshatriya by her nature, there were three sons born, Dhruyu, Anu, and Puru. So the Bhagavatam then divulged into details of Puru dynasty. From Puru, the famous king Dushmanta came, and this king Dushmanta was very powerful. He went into forest one day, and there he met Shakuntala. Shakuntala actually was a daughter of Urvashi, left. Anyways, the story is very detailed, so I can't go into every story. So she was a she was like a demigod, demigoddess, abandoned in the three planetary system. So a very powerful sage brought her up. And usually, if you see the damsels of heavenly planets, they are not very chaste by their nature. But Shakuntala was extremely chaste, as raised by the Rishi Munis. And so Shakuntala, when Dushmanta and Shakuntala got married, they had a son Bharata. And to vouch for Bharat Maharaj, the sky had to come forward and tell Dushmanta Maharaj that Bharat is your son. And Bharat Maharaj prowess is extremely, it's unmeasurable. That's the power of Bharat Maharaj. He expanded boundaries of India, left, right, and center. He actually united a lot of the landmass that you see. And so Bharat Maharaj then he had no son. So Marutas actually came and gave Bharadvaj as a son to Bharat Maharaj. Bharadvaj story again, like Shakuntala, is a very interesting story. Brihaspati had an affair with the wife of his younger brother, and so that's how Bharadvaj was born, and no one was willing to take uh, responsibility of Bharadvaj. So basically, Marutas had taken Bharadvaj. Marutas, if you remember, in the sixth canto, towards the end of Vritrasur's story, there is a story of Indra hitting the womb of Aditi, and womb splitting into seven. Indra hit again, then again seven, then hit, so like that 49 Marutas were born. And actually these Marutas were taken by Indra because they were actually brothers of Indra, from Diti. And even though they were born of Diti, who is a demoniac, mother of all the demons, but still these Marutas were very divine and had good qualities of demigods. So these were the Marutas who had actually took the son Bharadwaj when he was left abandoned. They named him Bharadwaj, and when Bharat Maharaj had no son, they gave Bharat Maharaj the son Bharadwaj. And from this Bharadwaj, further the lineage went ahead, and Vritakshatra, Nara, there were five sons, but we are focusing only on the sons where from which the lineage went further ahead. So Nara was important, very important, because in this lineage a very very pure devotee on Ranti Dev was born, and on Ranti Dev, there was no existence of Maya for Ranti Dev. He was an absolute pure devotee, and Krishna personally presented himself to him. So Rantidev story is mentioned. So we have Nara, which is an important lineage, and then we have Britakshattra. Britakshattra went ahead and had a son named Hasti, from whom the city called Hastinapur, which is very famously named in Mahabharata, is mentioned. And from Hasti, then there were sons like Ajamidha, Dvijamidha, Purumidha, like that. But only Ajamidha is described in detail as his lineage went ahead. So last session we described in detail the lineage of Ajamidha, and in the lineage of Ajamidha we had, let me see if can this go. This was the lineage of Ajamidha. So in the lineage of Adhamida, we had Neela. So we spoke about Panchalas from basically Brahmyashva. We had Mudgalas. They were five in numbers. So that's why you have Pancha and Panchalas. And from there, we basically the important son was Dhrupad, because Dhrupad was the one who had fight with Dronacharya. And because he lost that battle with Dronacharya, he did a fire sacrifice, and from fire sacrifice was born Drishtadyumna and Draupadi. They were not ordinary children, they were born of fire, and therefore they were very pure. And then similarly, Devodasha's lineage went ahead with Drishtadyumna and Draupadi. And on the other side, there was Ahalya and Gautam, which is a famous story during Lord Ram's time. Then they had many sons in between, Shatananda, Shatyavari, and Sharadvan. Sharadvan also lost semen when he saw Urvashi, who being extremely beautiful. Urvashi is not an ordinary damsel. She again was born of fire on the specific instructions of the Lord. So, So then that semen fell on grass, and therefore twin brothers and sisters were born, Kripacharya and Kripi. Kripi later married Dronacharya from Mahabharata, the famous teacher of the Pandavas, and from whom Ashwatthama was born. So we know about Ashwatthama. Kripacharya, not much mentioned, but Kripacharya lived after Pandavas, and Kripacharya actually also taught Parikshit Maharaj, and I think he also taught Janmejai, who was actually the son of Parikshit Maharaj. After Parikshit Maharaj left, the eldest son was Janmejai. So that is one side from Nila, which is Panchalas. Then from Riksha, there is five sons. Janhu was the most important, and Sudhanu was most important. From Sudhanu, there were Magadhas. This portion, this lineage is Magadhas, in which Jarasandha was born. And also Upachari Vasu was born. Upachari Vasu gave through Matsya Garbha, meaning a lady of the oceans. He married Matsyagarbha, and Satyavati was born. And Satyavati, you will see later, although in the Sudhanu's line, in Janu's line, she became wife of Shantanu, Satyavati here. So important kings are Jarasandha, because story of Jarasandha is very famous. He was born as separated. A demoness named Jara, she joined him, and so he was called Sandha, or Sandha means join, and Jara is the name of the demoness. So because Jara joined this boy, the boy was named Jarasandha. So this kingdom in the under the lineage of Sudhanu goes further to the modern day, last 3000 years of Indian history, where you have Chandragupta Maurya in the Indian history. So this is that line of Magadhas. Magad is ancient Bihar and that portion of India. Janhu was further, we went ahead and we saw that he had three sons, Pratipa, Devapi, Shantanu, Bhalika. Devapi said he will not marry, and then, he went to forest, and then he is going to live still in the whole of this Kali Yuga. And when the new cycle of the Yuga start, this Devapi is going to restart the lunar dynasty. He lives in a village called Kalapagram. This village possibly is somewhere in South India, but the way it happens is as the yugas pass, the names of the villages keep changing. Whatever was the name of a village some 1,000 years ago, that name of the village has changed now already. And there are unlimited such examples in India. So this personality, Devapi, is a mystic, and they still waiting to restart the Soma dynasty after this cycle that we are in finishes after 4,38,000 years, which is 438,000 years. So that is one son, and then there is Shantanu. Bahalika we mentioned briefly in last session. Why we mentioned Bahalika as his son? Because his sons Somadatta, along with his sons his sons Bhuri, Bhurishrava, and Shala, they all are mentioned in the beginning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavad Gita as Maharathis, as great warriors. So because they were actually extremely, exceedingly powerful, there are stories of them in Puranas. So they also participated in. So, but that's almost that much mentioned. Then we have Shantanu. From him, the lineage proceeded ahead. Shantanu married Mother Ganga, and Bhishma Dev was born, who vowed not to marry. And then Shantanu also married Satyavati. And Satyavati, before her marriage to Shantanu, already had married Parshuram, Parashar Muni. Parashar Muni is a very powerful saint, and from Parashar Muni and Satyavati, Vyasadev was born. And from Vyasadev, Shukdev Goswami was born, who is actually the author of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So Satyavati, when had a son from Shantanu by the name Chitrangad. Chitrangad got into a battle with um, uh, another Chitrangad from higher planetary systems. I forgot the name of the higher planetary system. So that Chitrangad from the higher planetary system killed this Chitrangad from the earthly planetary systems. But before Chitrangad died, he had a son named Vichitravirya, who was actually very weak in his personality, born weak. So he actually, Vichitravirya didn't last long, and so he actually passed away. And so there was a situation in the kingdom that there was no one to take the kingdom further ahead, because Bhishma Dev wouldn't marry, wouldn't agree to marry. So Satyavati, who was the chief Rajmata, or the queen at that time in the throne, she requested her other son, who happened to be Vyasdev himself. to come and give birth to sons through the wives Ambika, Ambalika. So Amba you can't see here because Bhishma Dev actually in a Swayamvar ceremony had abducted or kidnapped Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. In a classical form, there are four types of marriage systems. One is through kidnap, and this kidnap is by challenging all the kings of all the kingdoms, not like a cowardly kidnap. This is like a very chivalrous kind of a kidnap. So there he challenged all the kings, and he took away, by defeating all those kings, he took away Amba, Ambalika. Amba's story I told in the last week. So she was attracted to another king who lost battle with Bhishma Dev. So Bhishma Dev left Amba to that king, but king wouldn't accept Amba. So Amba said, "You please marry me, Bhishma Dev." Bhishma Dev said, "I'm a brahmachari." So there was a battle between Bhishma Dev and Bhishma Dev's guru, which is Parshuram Bhagwan. And Bhishma Dev won that battle. So then Amba had to take rebirth and born as Shikhandi. And Shikhandi was burning in this rage to kill Bhishma Dev. That was the sole purpose of Shikhandi. So, so Ambika and Ambalika, they had sons from Vyasadev. Ambika gave birth to Dhritarashtra because Vyasadev was he came straight from his tapasya. So these queens who were used to royal forms and, they were shocked to see Vyasadev. And so because Ambika closed her eyes, her son was born blind. And Ambalika, she was also very fearful. So her son Pandu was born little weak. And maid servant, there was another maid servant, and Vyasdev basically also gave her a son. And because maid servant was serving Ambika and Ambalika, she knew what had happened, so she was very intelligent. And the son that was born from her was Vidura, and Vidura is actually the Yamraj who was cursed by Markandeya Muni in Puranic stories to be reborn on the earthly planetary systems. So Vidura, Yamraj was expansion of Yamraj was had taken birth as Vidura, and then we know Dhritarashtra had married Gandhari and had 100 sons. They were all evil-minded, only apart from few sons. They were therefore their all names started with Du, not Su. Duryodhan, and the eldest daughter was Dushala. Pandu, he got married with Kunti and Madri, and Madri married Ashwini Kumaras who were very beautiful. So she had very beautiful sons, Nakula and Sadev, and Kunti through the blessings of demigod, she had actually four sons. First son was Karna, which question came up last session. So she was very feared. Karna was born when she was not married, so out of fear, she left Karna in the village, sorry, in the river, and Karna flew, and Karna was picked up by another personality. And in the previous session, there was a lot of heated debate and questions being raised about, oh, Karna was a deprived child and was left away alone, and so basically Karna, injustice was done to Karna. We will see in today's session also there is mention of Karna, and we will see Karna was not gone to like an ordinary person. We'll come back to that in a moment. So this is the lineage. Then Yudhishthir, Arjun, Bhima was born. They had sons from Draupadi, Prativindhya, Shrutakirti, Shrutasena, Shatanika, and Shrutakarma. And then each of the Pandavas then married when they were in their tours and travels, when they were asked to go to forest for 14 years. At that time, there were many incidents. And so in all of these incidents, they had to take in hand some kings would request them to marry their daughters, and so they had to oblige. So Yudhishthir Maharaj got married to Pauravi, and the Devka was born. Bhim married to Hidimba, and Ghatotkach was born. The story of Ghatotkach is very famous. Bhim also married Kali, and Sarvagata was born. Story of Sarvagata is in Puranas. Sahadev, the younger son, very beautiful, married Vijaya, and who was daughter of the mountains. They had a son named Suhotra. Nakula and Karenumati, they had a son named Narmita. And Arjuna, who married the daughter of the Nagas, Ulupi, and he had Iravan. Iravan was extremely powerful. Similarly, Arjuna also married the princess of Manipur. And so Babruvahan was born. Babruvahan was taken as the adopted son of the king of Manipur. So Princess of Manipur, her father adopted the son born from her daughter. as his own son. So then the lineage in Assamese king. So if you go to Assam even today, they worship Krishna in Assam because this is the connection through Arjun and how the whole thing happened. Of course, everyone's know in knowledge of Arjun plus Subhadra, from whom Abhimanyu was born, and from Abhimanyu got married to Uttara, and from whom Parikshit Maharaj was born. And this is where we discussed in last session. So this session, the story goes back. Oh, really goes back. Okay, the story goes back. We came all the way here to do Dvidodisha, Drupad, the Panchalas, the Magadhas, and the Kauravas. You know, the Riksha, Kuru, Janu, and then the Pandavas at the bottom. We did all that. Now there is a walking back this tree to Puru, and from Puru we go back to Yayāti, and we are now describing the remaining four sons of Yayāti. So this whole up till down, this whole tree came down. Why it was very important to describe Puru? Because in next chapters, when we are starting to describe Yadu, there is um, there is cross marriage across the dynasties. Because you know very well, right? Arjun was a cousin of Krishna. How did he become cousin of Krishna unless there is a connection between Krishna's dynasty? So it was important for Shukdev Goswami to just go and he described all that lineage. Then he comes back and he starts describing this kingdom of Anu. That's the first kingdom he starts to describe. And it's very interesting. The sons that are born, the people that are born in these kingdoms, you have heard of them in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam already. So it's an important thing. So Anu's lineage increased. There are many people mentioned here, but essentially the story halts at Romapada. Romapada is a very interesting personality. You know why? Because Romapada had actually married a personality named Varshini. Varshini was elder sister of Kaushalya. Everyone knows Kaushalya, Lord Ram, Lord Ram's mother. So Romapada married Varshini in the kingdom of Anga, and at the same time, see, we are discussing lunar dynasty here, but we had already described the solar dynasty just before these chapters of lunar dynasty began. We had already described solar dynasty, so they are running parallelly basically. So around this time, in the kingdom of Anga, the king was Rompad, but in Ayodhya, the king was Dashrath Maharaj. So Dashrath Maharaj's wife was Kaushalya, Rompad's wife was Varshini. Kaushalya and Varshini, they were sisters. Elder sister was Varshini, younger sister was Kaushalya. Now Kaushalya and Dashrath Maharaj, they had a daughter by the name Shanta. And Shanta and Rompad and Varshini after years also had no children. So such magnanimous were the personalities Kaushal and Dashrath Maharaj. They actually gave her daughter Shanta to Rompada because in olden days this was a practice. You know, in families, you know, that one child would be raised by another cousin brothers, or they would be raised by sister. Sisters would give their children to each other to raise if they had no sons or children like that. My father was also raised like that, in fact, in just last 100-year history. So essentially, um, Rompada was given daughter from Dashrath Maharaj, whose name was Shanta, and Rompad loved her daughter very much, raised her very nice. She was very beautiful. The description of Shanta is mentioned that she was as good as lightning. She was so beautiful. So, because Rompada had no son and the daughter was given by Dashrath Maharaj, once what happened is his kingdom had no rains. There was no rainfall. So he did tapasya, reached out to demigods, and the demigods were pleased, but nonetheless they were not able to give him rains. So he was given a suggestion that please reach out to Rishya Shringa, a personality in the forest. He lives in the forest. He reach out to this. If this person, Rishya if he does your sacrifice, then rains will definitely fall. So this King Rompada started to inquire, find out who was this Rishya. Rishya was actually the son of a very great sadhu muni whose name was Vibandhaka. So Vibandhak was the father of Rishashanga, and Vibandhak had actually taken a vow to live in the forest, and he wanted his son Rishashanga to also be brahmachari all of his life. So from childhood up to youth, Risheshanga was a perfect brahmachari. So when king learned about this situation of Vibandhaka and Risheshanga, Rompad the king, he basically sent prostitutes, some dancers, some musicians to lure this Risheshanga into city, because he wanted Risheshanga into city and do his fire sacrifice. And he knew very well that Vibandhaka wouldn't let his son come out. So Rompad had to find some way to get Risheshanga, the young mystic, brahmachari, to come out from forest. So Risheshanga got attracted and he followed the dancers and he came into this very opulent city of Rompad, where he saw, the palatial buildings and everything, got enchanted. And there, he Rompad very kindly requested him to do his sacrifice for rains. And so Risheshanga, he basically did the sacrifice, and immediately the rains fell in the kingdom of Rompad. Now, as soon as that had happened, Rompad offered his daughter Shanta in marriage to Risheshanga. Now, Vibhandak, when he came back from his austerities in forest, he saw that his hermitage was very littered. The fire sacrifices hadn't been done, nothing was in place. So, because he was such a powerful yogi, such a powerful sadhu, he closed his eyes and he could see that actually his son, Risheshanga, was lured by these courtesans, these musicians, these prostitutes into the city of Rompad, Anga. And so I think the name of the city's capital was Champanagar or something. So he was so angry, so enraged, that he decided that he will go to this city, this capital city, Champanagar. He'll burn the whole kingdom to ashes, and he had all of those powers to do it. So Rompad also very well knew it, that this will happen, because the father never wanted the son to come into the material life, and so he wanted the son to become a brahmachari. So as this Vibandhaka started to walk towards the city, Rompad had laid a trick, and he made all of his pathway very beautiful. Thousands of cows, uh, people, of the villages, they were all along his path. And so Vibandhaka felt very nice, these are stories from Purana, I'm telling you, these are not directly mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So he felt very nice in his pathway coming back to this city of Champanagar. And wherever he waited, halted, when he was tired, he asked people, "Oh, who is the owner of this land?" And the citizens of the kingdom were trained to tell, "Oh, this all belongs to Risheshanga. We are just servants of Risheshanga." So this Vibhandaka was very calmed down, because he thought, "Oh, Risheshanga is now so heavily respected. He's become so wealthy, and everyone's thinking that he's the owner." So by the time he reached the kingdom, he basically forgot all his anger. And his daughter, he saw his son Rishishinga dressed very royally, like in all the kingly dresses. And he also saw that Shanta was very beautiful. So they both fell at his feet and seeked his blessings for marriage. And so he blessed them, but he put one condition, that as soon as the son is born, you must give up this kingdom and come back to forest. So Risheshinga, being a very obedient son, see, he was raised by his father all of his life as a brahmachari, and he never learned as a brahmachari. You never say no to your senior authorities. You never say no to your father. So he didn't say no to his father. He said, "Okay, as soon as my first son is born, I will come back to forest." So basically, his first son was born. Risheshinga's son was born. He handed that son over to Rompad, who actually originally had no son. Remember, he had no son. So he handed the son back to Rompad, and he started to leave for forest. And now Shanta, she followed her husband into forest. So Shanta, from childhood, she had lived in opulent life. Born in the family of Dashrath, passed on to Rompad, who she was only daughter. And now first half of the life was amazing and super amazing. The second half of the life was in difficulty. She followed her husband into forest, because she was very chaste, and she was extremely peaceful. And in forest life, they both led the remaining portion of their life in tapasya, and they, attained the perfection. In fact, till date, there is a temple of Rishi Shinga in Himachal Pradesh in India, and there is also a temple of Shanta, and people pray to Mother Shanta for extreme peace in their life, like that. This Rishishanga is also very famous because he was the one. See, in those days, the people were so selfless. Dashrath Maharaj had many queens. If you go back and read the narrations, but from none of his queens he had any sons. He had just one daughter, that was Shanta, but he gave it away to Rompad, the king of Anga. So, in spite of having so many opulences, he had absolutely nothing, but whatever he had, nonetheless, he gave it to king of Anga. So Rishishanga, who was actually the husband of Shanta, and Shanta knew very well that her original father Dashrath Maharaj and her original mother Kaushalya had no children, and she also knew that Rishishanga is very very powerful. So it was Rishishanga the sage who was requested by Dashrath Maharaj to do Putra Kameshti Yagya, and from this Putra Kameshti Yagya, the four sons, the famous sons Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna were born. So this is the power of a brahmachari who, or brahmacharya, of a person who has done tapasya from his childhood to his youth. He had a potential to drop, request rains where demigods had failed. He had potential to, do putra kameshti again, actually give sons to barren parents. Uh, so 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 this is the story of Rompad, king of Anga, his wife Varshini, Dashrath Maharaj, Kaushalya, and how Lord Ramchandra was born, how powerful Mother Shanta was, and how powerful her husband Rishishinga was, and how pure Rishishinga's father Vibhandaka was, his vow to be in the forest, and how it bore fruit for everyone. So the lineage, Rishishinga's son was given to Rompath, and from that son, the lineage continued. Many kings were born, and in that lineage, one king was born whose name was Adhirata. Adhirata is the same personality who actually took this son Karna from the ocean. So someone in the previous session was very much distressed because they thought it was a grave injustice to Karna. Yes, agreed. There is no second thought. There was that no injustice. But Karna didn't go to any ordinary person. Karna was not a deprived boy. Karna didn't. He was raised by a king, and Adhiratha had no son. His only son was Karna, and Adhiratha's mother Radha, she showered lot of affection on Karna as her mother. So and in fact, Karna was very famous from his mother's name, and he was called Radheya. Karna had only one son, and there the lineage of Anu finishes in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. If you see here in the picture, I think I'll raise the size of the image. Here in my picture, I've said Karna is also called Dambodh. Dambha means to boast, you know, Dambhena, meaning with very boastful nature. Why he was called Dambodh? Because in his previous life, his name was Sahasrabahu, or sorry, Sahasra Kavacha, because he had 1,000 armors gifted to him by sun god, and so he was given this gift, and but because he was very bragful in his nature, he was given this name Dambodh. So far with me, not lost in this complete hierarchy of lineages. So Anu's hierarchy was described until Karna's son, and then the Bhagavatam moves to Dhruyu. Dhruyu is again the son of Sarmishta, so Kshatriya by nature. And from Dhruyu's lineage, many children were born. Eventually, Pracheta was born, who had famous 100 sons called Prachetas. Everyone knows the story of Prachetas from fifth canto, I think. So Prachetas, they pleased the Supreme Lord. Lord Shiva had appeared to Prachetas immediately and given them direction. So Lord Shiva was their guru, And Lord Shiva, in the end of fifth canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, gives very beautiful instructions to Prachetas on how to actually achieve the benediction from the Supreme Lord, the mercy, the love of the Supreme Lord. So Lord, therefore it is said that Lord Shiva immediately becomes pleased on people who decide to worship Lord Vishnu, or who even begin to think that they should worship Lord Vishnu. So Pracheta's story is very famous. They achieved the love of Godhead and they were asked to rule the world. And in that time, the whole of North India was ruled by Malechas. And Malechas is essentially people who don't uh, take bath. It essentially means people from cold places. So you can think of Caucasia, Russia, Himalayas, and further upper northern regions. So they were given this north of India to rule basically. So they ruled all of the north of India, and they brought some orderliness, education, and good lifestyle basically to the north of India. So there, the story of Dhruyu's dynasty finishes. Then comes Turvasu. In the dynasty of Turvasu, there was a famous king by the name Karandhama, who is described in Shrimad Bhagavatam as very magnanimous. And he had a son named Maruta. Maruta actually had no son of his own, so he took Dushmanta. Dushmanta, you remember, we just were doing Puru's dynasty, and Puru's dynasty had a son. Puru had a son named Dushmanta. So he took Puru's son Dushmanta as his own son. He adopted Dushmanta, and Dushmanta was very happy to be adopted by Maruta as his father. There are no details immediately in Shrimad Bhagavatam. Maybe there are Puranic stories as to why Dushmanta agreed to become the son of Maruta. But later on, Dushmanta wanted, the kingdom, and because he wanted kingdom, so he went back to his original father, Puru, and again got became the king of that dynasty, Puru dynasty. So this is where uh, the whole story of Karandhama, Maruta, and Dushmanta finishes. So far we have seen the sons of Yayāti, Puru, Anu, Dhruyu, and Turvasu. Now, before beginning going further, Srimad Bhagavatam says, वर्णयामि महापुण्यं सर्वपापहरं नृणां यदोर्वंश नरः श्रुत्वा सर्वपापप्रमुच्यते. That anyone, now I am going to varnayami, now I am going to describe to you something which is mahapunyam. So there are two things, something that can destroy all your sins, but when your sins are destroyed, you are still at zero. But this learning of, or hearing attentively this whole lineage of Yadu Vamsha, the son Yadu, what happens? It is a story of Mahapunyam. It gives you unlimited quantity of punya or piety just by hearing the narration of this dynasty of Yadu. So it's so powerful that simply by giving oral reception attentively, you will not only get rid of all your sins, so you don't have to go do thousands and millions of yagyas, go to holy places, all sins are destroyed simply by hearing. But not just that, your piety, your bank balance is increased tremendously. It said Mahapunyam, Sarva Papa Haram Ninam, Yador Vamsha Nara Shrutva, Yadu Vamsha, anyone, any Naraha means human being, any human being who hears of the Yadu Vamsha, Shrutva means hear. Sarva Papa Pramuchyate. All their papas, all their sins from all unlimited lives, they are destroyed at once simply by giving attentive oral reception to this dynasty of Yadu. And so this shloka, this is text 19, and then followed by text 20. Very, very beautiful. Text 20 says, Yatra avatirno bhagavan parmatma narakritihi Yado Sahasrajit Krosta Naloripur iti Shrutaha. So he says, this will not only destroy all your papas, all your sins will destroyed. Why it will destroy it? Because in this dynasty, Yatra Avatirano Bhagwan, the supreme personality of Godhead actually took birth in this Yadu dynasty. This Yadu dynasty. And this supreme personality of Godhead, how he took birth? He is actually the Paramatma, and he came in human form, Narakritihi. That doesn't mean that God doesn't have a form. It just means that he came like a human form. He has human form, but he took a human form. And then if in this dynasty from Yado Sahasra Jeetkosta Nala Ripu Iti Shuta. So then there are descriptions of who were born in this Yadu dynasty. But Prabhupada has very important point he is mentioning in the purport. One may understand Krishna who exactly resembles a human being, Narakritihi. This human form was explained by Krishna himself after he manifested the Virat Rupa. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna manifests its Virat Rupa, the universal form. This Virat Rupa is not the original form of the Lord. The Lord's original form is Dvibhuja Shyamasundar, two-handed Shyamasundar form. This is his original form. And this is what Krishna manifested in that 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. After showing the Virat Rupa, Arjuna told Krishna, show to me your Chaturbhuja form. So Krishna first showed the form of Narayan, so that people understand that yes, this same Narayan is the one who actually showed this temporary forms of universal form. And after that, Arjun told him to kindly resume your original form. When he requested like that, Krishna came back to his original two-armed beautiful form. So this is what Prabhupada is using. But Dvibhuja, sorry, you will have to bear with me a moment. I think I have a Guru Maharaj class playing in the background, and it sometimes trigger automatically when the sessions are going on or when I'm in a call. So I'll have to stop sharing, just go back and stop the call. 1 second. Okay. So Prabhupada further says that the Lord forms are proof of his inconceivable qualities. He is dressed with a form exactly like that of a human being. That does not mean, however, that he is a human being. This is his original form, but because he looks like a human being, those with poor fund of knowledge consider him an ordinary man. The Lord says, Avajananti mamudha manushim tanumashritam param bhavam ajananto Mamabhuta Maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my superior dominion over all that be. So, actually, however, he is originally like a human being, and the impersonal Brahman consists of the rays of his body. Yasya Prabha Pravato Jagadanda Koti. So, Prabhupada is mentioning in this verse that Krishna came as in a new human form. That is his original form, and actually he also is a Paramatma, and he also from his body comes this light called Brahma Jyoti. So after these two verses are mentioned, uh, how can I go to my next image here? So now we have a description of Yadu, this last son of the eldest son Yadu Maharaj. This dynasty of Yadu is described, and this chapter here ends here at Vidarbha. So we will go through the dynasty of Yadu. In the dynasty of Yadu, the important sons were Sasrajit, Krosta. And Nala and Ripu were also the sons, but these two were important sons. Sahasrajit had a son named Shatajit. Shatajit had sons named Mahahaya, Renuhaya, Haihaya. Now this Haihaya, you need to note it very carefully. Why I'm saying you need to note it is because when you read in the previous canto, when you read about the sons, 1 minute, it was this here. When you were, no, not this one, sorry, this one. When you were reading of the sons here of Pururava from the very beginning line, you had Ayu and you had last son Vijaya. You remember last son Vijaya in the original from moon god? This Vijaya, if you go further down in the lineage, In that lineage, there was a sixth son of Jamadagni Muni who was Lord Parshuram. You remember Lord Parshuram? So in that verse where Lord Parshuram is described, the way he is described is Hai Haya Nashanam. He is described as Hai Haya Nashanam. So if someone reads Bhagavatam, then they will if they have noted, then they will realize that this sixth son Vijay in his dynasty came Renu, who was the mother of Parshuram, and Jamdagni Muni and Renu, and then their son was sixth son was Parshuram Bhagwan, and Parshuram Bhagwan is described as Hai Hai Nashanam. So we will go back to dynasty of Yadu. So in this dynasty of Yadu, there is this Hai Haya, Mahahaya, Renu Haya, Hai Haya. So in this dynasty, you will see something special happening because it is mentioned cross link to Bhagwan Parshuram. So Dhanaka was born, and here Kravirya, Kritavirya, and then Kritagni and Kritavya. So Kritavirya had a son named Kartavirya Arjun. So this Kartavirya Arjun story is very, very powerful. You can all go and read, do some search on this Kartavirya Arjun. He had challenged Arjun, I think, and he lived 85,000 years with full bodily strength, extremely powerful. He actually had Ashta Siddhis from Dattatreya. Everyone knows Dattatreya, right? Dattatreya is the three, is so so. Let me tell you who is Dattatreya. You have Moon God, and Moon God's brother is Dattatreya, and Moon God's brother is also one Ambrish Maharaj, Durvas Muni. Durvas Muni is the brother. So Durvas Muni, Dattatreya, and Moon God, Somdev. These three are brothers. They are all very, very powerful. So Dattatreya, he basically had given Kartavirya Arjun because of his austerities. He gave him blessings of Ashtasiddhi, which means he can become smaller than the smallest, larger than the largest, travel with the speed of mind, can be in any place, and all those things basically. So he was very, very powerful, Kartavirya Arjun. Because he was extremely powerful, he lived 85,000 years, very long time. And then his eldest son was Jayadhwaja. Jayadhwaja had 999 other brothers. So from Kartavirya Arjun, 1,000 sons were born, and these 1,000 sons were killed by Parshuram. Bhagwan Parshuram killed all of these thousands because they were very powerful, proud, because they were born in a very powerful, under very powerful father. There is a description of them, but they all were killed. But Jayadhaja had an eldest son. His name was Talajanga. There is some story of Talajanga. I don't exactly remember now. Talajanga's elder son was Vitihotra. Vitihotra had 99 other sons. Talajanga had 99 other sons. Vitihotra plus 99 other sons. They all were killed by Maharaj Sagar. Now you remember who is Maharaj Sagar from fourth canto, the story of how Mother Ganga came to earth. There was this um, personality, Indra, who was always stealing away the horses in the yajna. And so Maharaj Sagar, who had the prowess to bring Mother Ganga, to the earthly planets, Maharaj Sagar killed all these sons of Talajanga, Vitihotra, and because these sons had created a lot of, because of the too much power, they had dug up the whole of north in looking for the horses, thinking that they have been taken. So there, a great sage was doing meditation, and when Maharaj Sagar reached there, then this sage, he enlightened Maharaj Sagar, and he basically told that all your sons have been killed here in this place. So Maharaj Sagar then he prayed to get Mother Ganga. He was given the secret to bring Mother Ganga back on the earthly planets, and so he brought Mother Ganga and liberated his sons. So then Vitihotra, he had a son named Madhu, and Madhu had a son named Vrishni. This story of Maharaj Sagar is little bit, I need to go back and read it again, but essentially Maharaj Sagar is the one who brought Mother Ganga. Well, three generations of Maharaj. It started from Maharaj Sagar, and the three generations were needed to bring Mother Ganga to earth. But it's a very, very interesting, very touching, and very beautiful pastime. So this Madhu and Vrishni. So here you have Yadu, from whom the dynasty started. Then you have Madhu, who was born. Then there is Vrishni, who was born. In fact, this Jayadhwaja was one of the sons of Kartavir Arjun. His other brothers, he was the eldest, but one of his younger brother was also called Madhu. So now you have multiple Madhus and you have Vrishni, and because of this, Krishna is called Govinda Damodara Madhaveti. Govinda Damodara Madhaveti. So here Krishna's lineage is also called Yadava Madhava Vrishni. Therefore, you will see the names in the bhajans. Krishna is referred to as Yadava because of Yadu, Madhava because he is one of his great grandfathers in the dynasty were Madhu, and then there is also Vrishni. Although this line didn't go further, Haya's line, but still this is the reference because this still comes under Krishna's dynasties. So then there is a story of Krosta, who was Sasrajit's brother. He, in his lineage, was a very mystic personality called Shashabindu. His story is also amazing. He was a mystic with 14 opulences. He had 10,000 wives and lakh of sons from each wife. 1 lakh is equal to 100,000. So 10,000 wife and 100,000 sons from each wife. Don't ask me how is this possible. For a mystic, all of these things are possible. He was a mystic with 14 opulences. Of his million sons, he had 6 sons were foremost, and Pruthushrava is one of those sons. There is further in the lineage is Ushana. Ushana is very famous because this personality Ushana is again mentioned somewhere in Mahabharata or Bhagavad Gita. He had done 100 horse sacrifices basically, and from him further the lineage grew ahead, and a king named Jayamagha was born. Now Jayamagha had no son because Shebya, she was sterile, and so they had no son. So there is a beautiful story of Jayamagha mentioned towards the end of this chapter. What is the story? Because Jayamagha was extremely fearful of his wife Shebya, Jayamagha couldn't remarry because he was too much afraid of his wife Shebya. So once in a battle, he defeated an enemy, some royal enemy, and he took one prostitute from that enemy's kingdom, and he brought back to his kingdom. And upon seeing this prostitute, Jayamagha's wife Shaibya asked him, "Okay, who is this personality?" So Jayamagha was very afraid because he was caught by his wife. So Jayamagha said that, "Oh, she's actually your daughter-in-law. She's a daughter-in-law." So then Shaibya said, "Lo, hang on. How come she's my daughter-in-law? We don't have a son, and you know very well that I'm sterile. So how come she's my daughter-in-law?" So Jayamagha was very afraid, but Jayamagha was pious, and in the past he had done a lot of sacrifice and tapasya, and so he had pleased the demigods. So Jayamagha said that no, I had pleased the demigods, and because I've desired a son, I've said it so. It will become true. So the demigods, they listened to this and they had mercy on Shaibya, and they actually gave a son to Shaibya. She became the mother, and the son of Shaibya was Vidarbha. And when Vidarbha was born, he actually got married to that prostitute that Jayabagha had brought in. So that's where this chapter finishes. So I have to put a full stop there. End of the story. Precisely 1 minute left in the timeline. In next chapter, this is you must remember this for the next chapter, because if you hear the Yadu Vamsha Nara Shrutva Sarva Papa Pramuchyate, if you hear this in continuation with attention and understand the upcoming kings and how they were connected, who married whose daughters and everything, then you will actually be able to understand why Krishna was so close to Arjuna, why Krishna, how these all people actually were connected with each other. The Chaityas, the Magadhas from the previous chapter, Ajamida's kingdom, the Kaurava dynasties that we described, the sons of Shantanu and Kauravas, and then Vrishni dynasty, and then to mix it, to add into this mix, there were people from Solar dynasty as well. But if you remember these people, even some names, then the same Bhagavad Gita that you read, it will become much, much more deeper. Like Bhurishrava, Shala, Somadatta, all of these people, they were important personality. Chaitya and Chaitya kings, there is Chedi kings from Rome Pada that you will hear in the coming sessions. Chedi kings are important because an important pastime happened there with Chedi kings. So I'll stop there and hand it over back to Dharmendra Prabhu. Thank you so much for your patience and tolerance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu, for an excellent class. Yeah, so nice to hear from you again, and I'm glad you did these chapters back to back, because our understanding of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam has increased, because you can connect them with the different chapters. So that was amazing. Such that I don't really have a question. I thought I better make one as I'm speaking,
Okay.
but I've been saved by Sadhu Mataji. Hang on, if I can just quickly go to the question I've just come with. So if someone actually reads this chapter over and over again, because you've said it's got a lot of piety, does that mean that they increase their spirituality a lot more and could potentially go back to Godhead if they continue to read this chapter over and over again and understand it? Obviously, not just read it just because to gain that, but read it to actually understand about Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. If they read this chapter over and over again, um, then what will happen is that they will not accumulate any sins. The problem in this material world is every single moment we accumulate sins just by being here. We kill ants, animals, we say something, we think in our mind something bad about other people. Sometimes we lie. We have illusory senses. So mistake, illusion, cheating, these are our tendencies. As a human being, we are born with these defects. So the problem is, because of this, we are continuously accumulating sins. But someone who reads Bhagavatam every day, Bhagavad Gita every day, and someone who reads just this chapter every day, not even progressing further, just listening of these personality, they don't accumulate any sin. It's such a small chapter. They don't accumulate any sin, but not just that, they are getting Mahapunyam. It's not an ordinary punya they're collecting. They're collecting Mahapunyam. It's I don't want to go into the 10th canto, but there are different kinds of gopis, and one kind of gopis were allowed in the pastimes of Krishna because for unlimited lifetimes they had collected Mahapunyam. So they got to become participate in the pastime of Lord as one of the gopis. In different categories of the gopis, they were one of the sets of gopis. So just by see, the whole purpose of this is not the liberation is the name of the canto, but every chapter has full potency to give you beyond liberation. In this chapter, there is in next chapter that you are going to read, there is one verse. I can't reveal you that verse because it will just take away the joy of reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. There is one verse which is, and that verse is mentioned just before this canto begins, and it raises you to that intensity. After this ninth chapter, if you have questions in your heart, questions of tattva, then basically you have to go back and read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. After ninth chapter, if you have questions of rasa, then you are actually on the right towards the pinnacle of understanding the 10th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Oh my God, how this happens, I don't even know.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Sadhu Mataji, would you like to ask your question, please? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very, very much for tonight. I don't know if I can call myself a geek because when I start reading something, then it goes as like a chain. It goes and follow each other. So when it comes to the tree, family tree, I have read in the back of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and when I read something, I can't leave it. So I read and read and read. What I see here is mostly it talks about the fathers, the masculine.
Yes.
At least in the beginning. But then I get curious and I want to know who their mother was. So I get to learn the Devayani is the mother of Yadu, right? Yayāti, right?
Yes. No,
Yes.
wife of Yayāti.
Wife of Yayāti, thank you. And mother of Yadu, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes. But then I get to learn something else about Devayani.
Yes.
Devayani is daughter of Shukracharya and Asura.
Correct.
And then it means in the lineage of Yadu, there is also a bit of Asura, right?
Yes, 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 you're right.
Wow.
But Devyani, she attained perfection in her lifetime. In that chapter of Yayati, 10,000 years of enjoyment, the last portion, Yayati said, okay, I've now done this enjoyment is not fulfilling me. It's like a petrol. You know, it just keeps increasing. I have to stop this completely. So he leaves for forest and there he attains perfection. As soon as he leaves, Devyani comes completely out of bodily conception of life. 1,000 years she enjoyed with Yati, but she comes completely out of bodily conception of life. She starts to literally she has a vision of people as souls because she does tapasya herself, and she becomes completely detached. And an extremely beautiful verse is mentioned for her. Extremely beautiful verse. I wanted to go back to the ninth canto and read out that verse, but it's such a beautiful verse back in the chapter of Yayati, and it's mentioned very clearly. She went back home, back to Godhead. So, personalities who went back home, back to Godhead, and even though she was a daughter of Shukracharya, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says that amongst the poets, I am Shukracharya,
Exactly.
I am Kavi. Yeah.
Yes.
So, everyone who has any power, potency, that is all Krishna's gift. And Krishna knows how to expand the lineages, who will be better off, and who eligible to take further the lineages. So there are, so that there was that personality, this born in Kartavirya Arjun got siddhi from Dattatreya, who is actually incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And see, his sons were killed by Parshuram. So someone who becomes lot of powerful, it's like they say, right? From good times come weak people, and weak people result in bad times. And from bad times come strong people, and from strong people comes good times. That circle of life. So you can see that happening in Bhagavatam many times. Not every time, but many times.
Yes. Another thing I'm thinking about today, you mentioned something about the mother of Lord Ram is mentioned
Kausalya.
here, and
Kausalya.
then I, in my understanding, Lord Ram was in another yuga, right?
So Lord Ram, he comes originally as he is on the 33rd cycle, I think, if I'm right. 28th cycle is Krishna, and 33rd cycle is Lord Ramchandra. So Lord Ramchandra from his planet, is it 33rd? There is some number. I may be a bit here and bit off. But basically, what happens is in every cycle of yugas, Lord Ram comes as an incarnation of the original Lord Ram from Ayodhya in the spiritual world. So there is a spiritual kingdom called Ayodhya where Lord Ram resides. Every cycle of yugas that is happening, Lord Ram's incarnation comes from that original spiritual world of Ayodhya. But on the 33rd cycle, that Lord Ram from that spiritual realm of Ayodhya descends himself directly. Just as in this cycle, which is the 28th cycle, Lord Krishna had descended himself directly from the original spiritual abode. Direct expansion. So every yuga cycle, Lord Ram comes, but that is an incarnation. But when the 33rd cycle of yuga cycles come, that is a special cycle. Just as 28th cycle is very special because in that cycle Krishna comes, hence Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also appears in that cycle, like that. But that doesn't mean that Krishna doesn't appear in all other cycles. Krishna does appear, but his incarnation comes. Krishna's
Okay.
incarnation comes, and
Thank you.
every 14 yugas, they have one incarnation which is assigned to these manvantar, to the manus, to the life cycle of a manu. So life cycle of manu is basically 72 yuga cycles. So that 72 yuga cycles is taken up by seven yeah, there is seven. It's divided further in seven portions, and basically what happens is for 114 portion, there is again an incarnation of the Lord, which is considered as a prominent incarnation. Just like we call this is a Kali Yuga, and we said that the Yuga Dharma of Kali Yuga is to chant the holy names of the Lord and do Sankirtan. This is what we say. This is the Yuga Dharma. So there is also, and there is an incarnation for a yuga. So in this yuga, the incarnation is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we understand. So similarly, for that 14 Manvantar, there is one incarnation which is prominent, and the Manvantar that we are under in, the Manu that we are under in, the incarnation is Vamandev.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.